Hi, first of all, I'm going to try and do this video out here, but it's quite windy and it's sort of roaring through the trees over there, so it has a little bit of background noise. So we're going to try it here, and if it doesn't work, I'll go in and do it inside. I haven't done a video in a little while because I've had this horrible cold that has kind of hung around for about 3 weeks, and last week it really just circled back around and hit me really hard, and I just felt so crap that I couldn't really do anything. I have had a request to do an actual spread reading, but that's a little bit more involved, so Pinny, I'm going to get on that, but for now I just thought I would talk about one card. So I thought I would talk about, back to the Fool's Journey. We've had number 0, this is number 1, the Magician. And this is a really interesting card to me. So in the tarot deck, in the both in the major arcana and in the minor arcana, you can kind of sort the cards into the 4 elements. So in the suits, the cups, water, wands are fire, creativity, swords are air, that's the sort of biting intellect, and what's left, earth. Pentacles are sort of coins, they're gold, they're made of physical stuff, they're earth. And you can also sort the major arcana. They also kind of go into different suits. For instance, I think the Fool, I think, is air, and I think the Empress, for instance, is earth. It's a very earthy card. Anyway, in the Magician here, you can see all of these suits. You can see the coins, the cups, the wands, and the swords. So he has all the 4 elements here and all the 4 suits here. So he's quite an interesting character because he's, if you think about it on the Fool's Journey, he's the first character that the Fool meets, and he's basically got all of these tools at his disposal, and he could give them to the Fool to as kind of aids on his journey. But what's kind of interesting about this card, see, we've got this man here, he's pointing at the heavens, he's pointing at the ground, he has this figure of 8, this eternity symbol above his head, it's sort of fruitful bounty all around him, and this table with all these tools laid out at his disposal. So it's a card of like representing real kind of power, and yeah, the means to kind of make things happen. We could talk about this card in kind of like, because it's a card of like manifestation, so you could kind of talk about like how we want to manifest. You know, I've been talking about like this new world we want to manifest and what we want to bring to it. We could talk about that again, but I'm not going to. This time I thought we could look at these elements and these things in terms of like tools we have within ourselves for like self-care, because when I was thinking about it, it reminded me of a talk I went to at the Wing, this women's club, and I went to when I was a member of it in New York. And I went to this one talk, and it was about sort of like positive manifestation, and the woman leading the talk was explaining about a sort of like happiness recipe, and it's a really, really simple concept, but one of those like deceptively simple ones that you're like, I should have thought of that, it's so simple, but having someone tell you it and kind of write it down like makes it make much more sense. And basically what she had us do was take a piece of paper and split it into columns, and in each of these columns, like one of the columns would be like spiritual, one of them would be physical, one of them would be emotional, things like that, and in each column you would put something that made you feel good. So spiritual might be even something like going for a walk outside, or it might be in the physical section. It depends on what you kind of feel. Physical could be sports, it could be taking a hot bath, that could be an emotional as well, or it could be emotional, could be, you know, like talking to friends. You know, it's up to you like where you would kind of place these things, because a lot of them could go in multiple columns, but she said that she tried to do at least one thing from each column every day, and it kind of makes it, well, of course it makes sense, right? Like if you do the things that make you happy, you're going to be happy. It's really obvious, but how often do we actually like let ourselves do that? And how often are we mindful about that? Like, I'm going to do this thing because it makes me happy. Often when we're sad or anxious or depressed, it's like we become so insular. It's this really kind of like self it can be quite selfish as well, but it's a really like self-focused time where you kind of curl in on yourself and you just can't see outside of the like bubble that you're in, and you can't even think about the things that make you happy. And that's when a recipe like that, where it's written down, might help you to kind of force yourself mindfully, get up, go for that walk, bake that cake, have a hot bath, have a glass of wine, have an extra chocolate, or a biscuit, something like that, and I think I'm thinking about that right now. And that's what it made me think of this, because of all the tools here and all laid out on the table and all in different columns. That's what kind of made me think of it. So with this card at the moment, I'm trying to think about what are the different elements that I can bring into every day that will help me cope with this very stressful, anxious time, and help me kind of better able to navigate through it, because it's an incredibly stressful time for everybody. Just if we just take like pandemic, right, incredibly stressful, anxious, then we take lockdown, oh my god, it's just like, where do we get our stuff? I'm bored, I don't know what to do. Or we've got the kids at home, how can I work at home when I've got kids and I'm going to do these lesson plans for them and all that bollocks. And then on top of that, we've got like being locked down. Maybe we're alone, which is incredibly stressful, or maybe we are locked down with our families or our partners, which is incredibly stressful. I'm finding it like, it's very hard to find things to talk about with my husband, because it's not like, oh, what did you do today, honey? It's like, oh God, we all did the same thing today that we did yesterday and the day before that, and we did it together, so we know everything. It's just like, what do we even talk about anymore? Hopes and dreams, I don't know, they feel like futile sometimes. So like, what do you do? So that, it's a time of like immense stress on relationships as well. On top of that, we all have like dynamics anyway within our families, within our relationships. I have family shit going on. I live next door to family and across the field from family, and there's a lot of dynamics that are things like that are kind of exacerbated by actually not being able to go in and talk to each other properly. So there's that kind of communication breakdown in ways, like health issues, elderly, grandparents. It's all just like, it's a stressful time, and I'm very aware that like I'm not the only person who's figuring this out. Everybody is in some kind of situation where their family dynamic is probably becoming like a little bit stressful at times, and that's not to mention the people who are just not safe or not happy at home. Of course, I'm being flippant about it now, and I'm not going to talk about that kind of thing, because I don't have anything to contribute to that conversation other than, God, it must be awful, and I've donated to Refuge, and like I don't know what else to do there. Anyway, so in a very kind of humdrum, boring way, we are all dealing with shit right now, and anxiety and stress, and what can we do to actively make ourselves feel better? Because I feel like everybody's like at different levels at different times. It's this constantly fluctuating thing. And like when my husband is feeling really anxious, I'm usually feeling kind of okay, and then his anxiety makes me feel crappy, and then it goes up and down, and we all kind of like share, and it all like the wave crashes on you at different times. And like, what can I do to help buoy up my family and my friends when they're having a tough day? What can I do to help myself when I'm having a tough day? And we do have more time on our hands, even though the caveat of like people with children, people with who are caring for relatives or whatever, might not have that much time on their hands, because the support network they had before is now gone, and everything is on them. So we don't, all of us, have a ton of time to write, King Lear or whatever shit people are saying about that. I saw some meme where somebody was like, if you haven't, learnt a new instrument or a new skill, or started your side hustle, or like taught yourself something, then you never really lack time, you just lack discipline. Well, fuck you, like some of us have shit going on, some of us have children, some of us are just like too anxious to focus right now, and there should not be any pressure on you to make or do anything. Just getting through a day is like, well done, big achievement really. So anyway, but I'm thinking about what I can do. What are the tools? What do these all represent, and what can I take from each element to make myself feel happier, and be conscious about it? Because we can just go for a walk, but maybe on that walk we're spending the whole time stressing about things and being anxious. Or maybe we can be mindful and be like, I am going for a walk. Isn't this a wonderful walk? Look, there's a tree over there, it's very pretty. Oh, the sun is beautiful, there's a gorgeous light, look at the clouds. You know, like we can force ourselves to be mindful about things, and then I feel like it's way more beneficial to you. It's like, you know, the sleep you get at a certain time of night is going to be way more beneficial than the sleep you get, like, you know, in the middle of the day. It's just like, what is more like nourishing to us? And going for a walk where we're actually, or taking a bath where we're actually allowing ourselves to kind of be in that moment and enjoy it, is going to be way more nourishing and beneficial to us than just doing it like without really thinking about it, or without really kind of appreciating it. And I do think there's an aspect of kind of like programming to our brains with this, that the more we bring in these elements and the more we like force ourselves to look at what we're grateful for, or what we're happy about, it will, I hope, eventually kind of like program our brains to just see that naturally, to see the good rather than the bad, because that's something I'm not very good at, and I'm working on at the moment, actively trying, forgetting occasionally, but trying to remind myself to do those gratitude lists and things, to try and train my brain to look at the positive instead of always going like, this is wrong and this is wrong and oh my god, now this is wrong too, and like, is anybody else like as stressed as I am? Oh, it's all happening at once, what a coincidence. No, I'm looking for the bad stuff. So I need to train myself to look for the good, and that is what I'm thinking about with The Magician today. And I hope you are all staying sane and doing okay. I know it's really, really tough right now, and I love you all, and thank you for watching.